You're watching The Ready Writer, a show where I get to speak to writers of all different genres, mediums, and experiences. The Ready Writer. Are you ready?
Welcome to another episode of The Ready Writer. Today's guest is Dr. Alan Lycka. We continue Dr. Lycka's journey. Dr. Alan was a guest on Healthy and Wealthy Conversations earlier this week. In 2003, his life changed when he was misdiagnosed with ALS and given 6 months to live. After fighting the diagnosis, he is here today as a result of his courage and determination. On Healthy and Wealthy Conversations, he shared with us his journey back to life. On this episode of The Ready Writer, he shares his writing and publishing journey. He first shared with us his inspiration in writing the bestseller, The Secrets to Living a Fantastic Life.
That came about because when I had found this diagnosis, and found the good things, I started to give back to society. And one of the things I started to do was reward women in an event called Women of Distinction by the YWCA. See, women still do not get as much kudos as they need. So as a cosmetic doctor, I started to put on this event, a mega event every year. And what happened there is a wonderful lady by the name of Harriet Tinka applied for one of the awards. Now, she did not apply to win the award. She applied to get to know me and get a chance to talk to me. So she said, "Could I buy you coffee?" I said, "Sure." So we went for coffee and she told me about her story. Harriet's story was similar to mine, but very different. Harriet is a beautiful Black lady who used to be a world-class model in New York and Milan and Paris. And she grew tired of the industry because it's not as glamorous as what people would think. So she decided to take up her second love, which is accounting. So she went to the University of Calgary, which is just south of Edmonton, and she started taking courses there. And she was befriended by a person that turned out to be a psychopath. He ended up kidnapping her, stabbing her, and leaving her for dead. Now, Harriet somehow made it to the hospital. And at the hospital, she was very depressed and beside herself. But a young girl by the name of Amber came wheeling up in a wheelchair. She was paralyzed from the waist down and had lost both of her parents in a car accident. And she asked Harriet for her story. And Harriet told her story. And that young girl said, "You should be ashamed of yourself, Harriet. You have so much to give to people." She said, "I challenge you to get your story out there to the world." So that's why Harriet wanted to go to these award dinner that I was putting on, to meet me, convince me to write a book with her. So that's where the idea for this book came out. Harriet was the inspiration for it, and we put it together. And it's about 13 golden pearls, 13 little trinkets, and we call them golden pearls because they're golden pearls of knowledge for each and every person to develop their new life on.
When asked, Dr. Alan gladly shared one golden pearl from the book.
I sure would. The first golden pearl is love. And Casey, where would we be in this day and age without love? It's because of the love of our mother and father that we're here today. And it's each one of our chapters starts with a little story. And my story is this. There once was a little girl with red curly hair. She was angelic. Every place she went, she'd skip. She'd leave a smile on everybody's face. Now, she had lost her mother a few years back from cancer. So it was her and her father alone. Now, one Christmas, she decided to wrap a box and give it to her dad. And her father got very angry about this. And he said, you shouldn't wrap a box with expensive wrapping paper. That's a waste of money. She did it anyhow, and she gave it to her dad on Christmas Day. Dad opened it, and he even became more angry. He said, how dare you give me an empty box? And the little girl said, box isn't empty, Dad. I blew kisses in it. So those kisses, you can take out one anytime you want. Well, several years later, the little girl died in a tragic car accident, and the father was beside himself. You know, he would keep the box underneath his bed, and occasionally he'd take it out, and he'd imagine his little girl sitting on his lap. He'd imagined this little girl whispering in his ear. And then he died of a broken heart several years later, and he went up to heaven, and there was St. Peter at the pearly gates. And Peter said, you must give me something to enter this paradise of heaven. And the old man took out the empty box and gave it to Peter. And Peter said, oh, enter, my friend. You have given me the gift of everlasting love. He entered, and he saw his daughter. And he said, oh dear, I'm so happy to see you. I've missed you. And the little girl said, Dad, why did you miss me? I never left you. Every time you opened that box, I'd give you kisses. I'd sit on your lap. I'd whisper things in your ear. You see, when I died, God made me into an angel, and I was your angel all these years. So there's a little story, Casey, from my book. And in each chapter, there's the dialogue that Harriet and I wrote as we were writing this book together. So we have all these wonderful stories for people and all this dialogue and all these precious things. And we have over 140 quotes throughout our book to let people learn the golden pearls and take them and put them into their own lives.
Dr. Allen enjoyed his writing and publishing journey and shared what he learned most from being an author.
Now, it taught me even more the depth and expression of life and love. It taught me more about that, but it also taught me more about giving back. And I wrote this book, and it was published at the early part of 2020. And I was going to go around the world speaking about it. The sad thing is, the world had a different idea. As you know, there was this little thing called the pandemic that came up in 2020, and the world literally stopped for 2 years. So what I did was I started a podcast, which became a syndicated radio show. It's called How to Live a Fantastic Life, and it's now enjoyed by over 7 million people a month. Now, you can listen to that on all Apple platforms. You can go to my website to see it, Dr. Allen Lycka, that's DRALLEN, Lycka, LYCKA, or go to the Brushwood Media app, Brushwood Media app, because that's where my producer puts them all on, and you can listen to them live at that time. And so there's a huge number of shows for everybody to listen to and even put more meaning into their lives. Every week, I literally interview dozens of guests so that people will understand this wonderful message of having happiness in their life.
Lastly, Dr. Allen shared some advice to aspiring authors about being a published author.
You know, that a brilliant author once said, it's not hard to write a book. All you have to do is slit your wrists and bleed. Because what you're going to be doing is sharing your soul with the world. So you need to, if you want to do that, you have to be willing to share your soul to the world. You shouldn't hold back. And I always tell everybody there's no such thing as good writing. There's only good rewriting. So don't be afraid to get your thoughts and words on paper, because they're not going to be your final thoughts and your final words. What you'll find is they'll get changed. And when you change them, they'll get polished to such a good extent. You should do it. So you need to find a good editor that'll help you get the words out there to the world. And once you get them out there, you'll find that they will make a difference.
For more details on Dr. Alan Lycka or to purchase his book, The Secrets to Living a Fantastic Life, you can go to his website at dralanlycka.com. That is DRALLENLYCKA.com.